Hihani washte. I'm just here to introduce Dana, my partner. We've been working together ever since 2014. We've done a lot together. We've been able to travel the world together to be able to continue our work and to learn so much. And Dana's put so much effort into our branding, our marketing, and managing me, which is a big job in its own. And and then there's a lot of our friends are always like, "Where can I get a Dana?" You know. But she's done so much, and she's really passionate about the impact of how all of these indigenous foods can really help heal a lot of our trauma and a lot of just our personal growth when it comes down to it. So she's going to be here to talk about that. So I just want to introduce Dana Thompson.
Hihane washte, hamitakiepe, imakyape Dana Thompson. I am Dana Thompson. I just said good morning to my relatives, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk to you guys today. As Sean said, I am the co-owner of the company The Sous Chef, and I manage Sean, of course. And we have a team of 18 people and have built this organization over the last 5 years. And it has been such an amazingly humbling and beautiful experience for me. So grateful for that. So here's a picture of me and Sean with part of our team. And one of the things that has been really profound for me over the last 5 years is just getting to know all of the men and women that work on our team and hearing their personal stories. And I want to tell you just a little bit about all of the things that I've learned over the course of that time. We have people that are Anishinaabe, Dakota, Blackfeet. People from all over the country have come to work with us and to learn the different stories of all of their experiences and all of their histories and their ancestral stories has been just really, really amazing for me. Today is really exciting for me to be standing here on this ancestral land because my ancestors are from here. My grandfather raised his family, including my mom, less than a mile from where we're sitting today. So it's important to me that you know my mom. This is Anne, and she taught me a lot about my Dakota history as we were growing up. She knew the names of wild edibles. She knew the names of different plants. She didn't call things weeds. Always had a garden and always had beautiful, nutritious vegetables that she grew herself that she was so proud to serve to me and to my brother and sister and to our friends and family. She also taught me a lot about the history of our family itself. Here we have a picture of my mom when she was 18 years old. And next to her is her mother, and then my Dakota grandfather, who was Mdewakanton Dakota and Wahpeton Sisseton, and also had a little bit of Anishinaabe in him. He grew up in his childhood home speaking fluent French, Dakota, and English. And his best friend was a gentleman that's standing right behind him, and his name is Paul Durand. Paul Durand is an incredible person because he got very inspired hearing my grandfather talk about all the waterways and the locations all around this area, and noted that not very many people knew the names of those areas. And so Paul, my grandfather had 10 children, so he didn't have a lot of time. But Paul decided to start documenting all of them. And so they started a journey that lasted several years where they would go all over this area here for maybe 50 miles around and do hiking trips. And so that he could document the names and put them into a book that was published. The book was called Where the Waters Gather and the Rivers Meet. And that book was dedicated to my grandfather, Clem. So that has been a really wonderful experience for me to learn, because the Duran map is one of the things that enabled Sean and I to name the restaurant that we're going to be opening, our for-profit entity, which is going to be right down on the Mississippi River, downtown Minneapolis, called Owamni. Owamni Yamni meant place of whirlpools. And at the time that it was still there, before industrialism completely destroyed it, basically, it was as striking as what they say Niagara Falls looks like today. It wasn't exactly like Niagara Falls, because it was a gradient of these beautiful, beautiful falls that ended in a whole series of waterfalls with sacred islands right in there, that some of them are also gone right now. So my grandfather also did an incredible job of documenting a story from his grandfather. And you can find that in the Minnesota History Center, and it's called The Ordeal of Hinhankaga. My great-grandfather was half Dakota and half French, and in the morning, on the day this picture was taken, right here, someone snuck into the cabin that he was sleeping in with his wife and his 2 beautiful young daughters and a 9-day-old baby boy. And she tapped him on the shoulder and woke him up out of his sleep, and she said, "Today is the day you need to choose. Are you Indian or are you white?" So I think we can all understand the difficulties and the traumas that our ancestors went through. To choose between your culture and your family is something that's unfathomable. And so what I want to talk a little bit today is about epigenetic memory. Epigenetic memory is something that has been documented over the last 20 or 30 years, and there is so much documentation to support it. It is proven that even if you did not experience the trauma yourself, you hold it in your body. Something that happened to your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your great-great-grandmother, it is in you. You hold it in different parts of your body, and you can react to it. And the beautiful part of this is that you can heal. You can heal that trauma and not pass that down to your own ancestors as well. It allows us the possibility of reversibility through something that is really beautiful that I just recently found out. The best way to do that is through maternal nutrition. So just by having a mother with a child in utero and eating specifically ancestral foods, but just nutrient-dense foods, and then hopefully nursing that child is a beautiful way to make this a healing mechanism. So I grew up knowing my Dakota history, and it was a really profound and beautiful thing for me. I was drawn to it. My brother and sister knew about it too, but I was the one that just wanted to go to every powwow. I wanted to learn all the beadwork. I wanted to dance. I wanted to sing the songs, and I just loved it. In spite of my coloring, I was so drawn to it. So this is a picture of me. Yes, I am smoking. I had kind of a goofy childhood. My father was a convicted felon, convicted of multiple felons, and was released from a mental hospital when I was 4, so a year before this. And I started therapy when I was 6 years old. And for some reason, I was also drawn to the fact that I knew that there was a mechanism for healing my dad, myself, my siblings, my mother, who was in crisis at the time, of course. And food was something that I found to be something that I could go out into the field and touch and hold, and just somehow it made me feel better. It just calmed me down. And I couldn't identify why, but I would go into the fields and I would touch plants and I would look at the sky and I would just feel great. So I became a vegetarian when I was 12. It didn't last too long because I get hangry really easily and I need meat, as Sean knows. But I began to assess the link between healthy eating and mental health. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about how ancestral foods can be a way to healing trauma in communities. So I want to talk a little bit about food sovereignty, and this whole conference is about food sovereignty, so I'm assuming most of you know, but I want to take just a little bit of a deeper lens of that. So I'm sure all of you saw Sean's keynote last night, which was incredible, and I'm looking at it from a different perspective right here. So I just want to talk about the definition of food sovereignty. So Via Campesina in 1996 said this: food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate foods produced through ecological sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agricultural systems. It seems so simple. And I started looking at it a little bit deeper, and I realized that all of the pillars of food sovereignty have deeply emotional connotations. Because if you focus on food for people, you're noting with a very compassionate eye that everyone wants to be nourished. Everyone wants to feel good. And they want to share that with their community and their loved ones. To value food providers. Farming is hard. Going out into the woods and gathering foods takes a lot of effort. And in order to feel good about that, it's really important for your peers to note that, or your family to say thank you, or to have gratitude, and just note the beauty of the abundance. Localizing food systems. That helps us bring communities together. It helps us to share this experience, which is such a beautiful and intimate way to connect with people. Putting control locally. That means you don't have to, order it on Amazon and have it show up at your door. You can make relationships with your farmers, with your local food providers, hunters, fishers, put it all together and actually meet them and have those beautiful human connections. And then you build knowledge and skills. Education. It's so deep. And then working with nature, which is something I want to talk a little bit more about. So the reaction to stress and attachment is pretty intense from an epigenetic standpoint. This is a slide that Sean had put up last night. He had ancestors that went to Carlisle Indian School, and my great uncle went there as well, under really different circumstances. But my great uncle played baseball with Jim Thorpe there. And so I imagine that he maybe had a little bit more of a privileged perspective, but he still had the forced assimilation happen. And so when you look at this picture, it's hard for me to look at it without bursting into tears, but everyone who had ancestors that went to these forced assimilation schools has trauma because there was abuse. There was all sorts of horrible things that happened there. And so they started doing research about the similar types of human experience that were documented with children of Holocaust survivors, children of Vietnam vets that were suffering from PTSD, as well in any society where genocide, ethnic cleansing, or war happened. So, can ancestral foods help to heal trauma in tribal communities? Is the question that I really want to dig into. It's important to access fresh, diverse, culturally relevant foods and give communities a sense of pride in where their food comes from, and a sense of pride in what they're sharing with their loved ones and their friends. When they do that, it releases hormones that are associated with attachment in the brain. And so I've been doing a lot of work on the study of the polyvagal theory, which shows us that the brain and the gut are deeply connected. When so the vagus nerve, it's this crazy thing that I'm obsessed with. It starts in the brain, starts in the human brain, and what it does is it comes down through your vocal cords, winds through your spine, and then goes through your gut and attaches itself to your pelvic floor. So if you are eating foods that are making you feel sick, it literally sends a message to your brain that says something's wrong, and it immediately makes you release cortisol, which Valerie was talking about, and that is the stress hormone. It's the fight or flight hormone. So as I've been working with tribal communities, as we've been going all over the world, Sean and I have been so privileged to travel all over the place. We've noticed that when we go into a community that is actively working on either manufacturing their own longhouses or putting a garden together, they're doing things that are really beautiful and profound. They're putting their hands in the dirt. They're touching plants. They're going out into the woods. They're going on the water and accessing fish. So in urban communities, it can get a little tougher because vegetable and fruit intake declines significantly as food insecurity increases. This, of course, increases cancer rates, cardiovascular risk, and increased rates of depression and suicide. So, the access to nature is the challenge. And so, what I have learned through all of this is that natural foods, of course, are ideal. And as I said before, there's this profound way to break this cycle. The uterine nutrition and then the breastfeeding is amazing because not only do you feed a baby this beautiful food and then you have that ability to do the breastfeeding, but when you hold your child and you're nursing that child, it releases oxytocin in you. And oxytocin is the thing that calms us all down. It makes us feel good. It makes us all feel connected. And so it creates this amazing attachment and bond, which anyone I know in this room that has ever nursed a child knows that feeling. It's almost like this, I call it a low. So you don't feel high from it, you just feel in yourself and beautiful and good. So a lot of the female indigenous peers that we have been doing a lot of this great work, and I've been learning from them. Valerie Seagrass is basically my hero. A lot of her work has really inspired my research, and there's a woman in California who's also getting her PhD from the University of Washington named Claudia Serrato, who's done work focused on ancestral memory and food. So this is a graph that shows how colonialism and industrialism and our moving away from natural foods has caused all these diseases. In this graph, specifically, we're looking just at diabetes, but it's pretty clear, pretty profound. The colonial ingredients that were not here before, wheat, flour, dairy, refined sugars, have been proven to be inflammatory to human tissue. So the body tissue is sensitive to inflammation. If you look at the heart, you look at hypertension, this is an inflammatory issue. And I look at it like the heart holds the ability to love. The heart holds grief. It holds all of these things. And so it needs anti-inflammatory foods, not only to calm that down, but also for you to access those healing mechanisms. Gum tissue is the place where they first noted these inflammatory issues coming in indigenous people. When Weston Price started doing his research, he would say the people that hadn't had any access to colonial foods looked like they had 2 rows of pearls. Those were the words he used. 2 rows of pearls. Beautiful, beautiful teeth with no decay at all, no cavities, absolutely perfect. And then, of course, the endocrinology in the lymphatic system, which is deeply connected to the pancreas and diabetes, also is the same system in your body that pertains to hormones and your mood. So this slide here is the statistics of mental health. And you can see very clearly that American Indians and Alaskan Natives have a higher percentage of a prevalence of adult mental illness by race. And what I want to say about this is that a lot of indigenous people that went through boarding schools or had ancestors that went through boarding schools or had any experience with the Indian Health Board are generally afraid to go to the doctor or very, very resistant. And so I'm going to say that the statistics of this is actually much higher than what this graph implies. So what I've been doing a little bit of research on is all of the different instances that can be documented about how important it is to access nature. There was a program that was started in Japan in 1982 called forest bathing, and Shinrin Yoku was the name. They had very high statistics of anxiety and depression and specifically suicide happening. So a team of doctors got together and they put together a whole team to research this, and they started following people as they went through the forest and realized that those cortisol levels dropped significantly. And you don't have to live in the forest. You don't even have to schedule in an hour-long hiking session every day. It takes 1 day a month of just getting out and being around nature to produce that oxytocin that I was talking about. And so in urban communities, I am hoping that we can maybe develop some programs where people can contact farms, soil, land, forest, sky, any aspect of nature to make that just a possibility for people to go out there. So looking at the correlation between access to nature and mental stability is pretty clear. One thing I do want to note, however, in my research is that grass has absolutely no benefits. So in the words of Sean Sherman, I am going to say again, lawns are stupid. So I have an announcement for the medical community. If there's anybody in here from there, please share this with your peers. The brain and the body are connected. I go to a lot of different places where people talk about mental health like it's this thing, like it's the 7th moon of Saturn out there. You've got your body and you're trying to get healthy, and then mental health is over here. It's a whole separate thing. It's not a whole separate thing. It's exactly the same thing. If you're putting stress on your heart, you're putting stress on your brain. Humans and plants have interdependency. To actually touch the plants, forage the plants, harvest the plants, anything that you can do with nature is going to heal you. Because humans are natural. So when you interact with nature, it's not only good for your cognitive health, but it heals your neurology. And cognition is the combination of several critical brain factors. We're talking about memory, judgment, the ability to learn language, even intuition, and the ability to learn. We are not separate from the planet. And in our society, I see all the time how people, especially on the news, they make it seem like, you know, we're humans and then the earth is over here, and like maybe be nice to the earth, but you know, whatever, do your own thing. But we are natural. We are nature. Seems like a huge 411. I need to make a billboard. So this is really humbling and inspiring. And so through our work with the Indigenous Food Lab, when we bring people in from any tribal community to learn about the fundamentals of the indigenous food systems, it's really important for me, and Sean is so on board with this, that we want to set up a program where we have mechanisms for healing trauma that start, you know, at the executive level all the way down to people that are just going to be there for a couple days. We want people to at least know how to identify trauma, not only in themselves, but also in their peers, so that they can reach each other with a deeper compassion, with a deep understanding of how they can help heal each other. Because trust and intimacy is the root of how we heal one another. And if you think about eating, it's the most intimate way that you can interact with nature, because you put it in your mouth and you digest it and it becomes part of you. So I want there to be no shame associated with discussing mental health issues. That's my ultimate goal, and it's something I'm going to be working really hard on for the next several lifetimes. So decolonizing your diet changes your mental health. You had seen this at Sean's keynote last night. He developed this program, and it's just the fundamentals of what we're going to do to remove that colonized thought and to connect spiritually and deeply with the food around you. So indigenous wisdom makes it really clear that we're connected. We're connected to plants, animals, soil, air, water, and every tribal community or every person is going to have something different that they're really deeply connected to. For me, it's trees. I want to hug them all. And some people, I was talking to my friend Wayne the other day, and he said for him it's horses. It could be rocks. Rocks saved my life when I was 15 years old. I was on the edge, and the rocks on Lake Superior, I literally could feel the vibrations coming through and healing me. It could be gardening. It could be foraging foods. It could be processing and drying these foods. All of that is a connection of attachment to nature. Trees specifically have been found to release an airborne agent called phytoncides, which actually decreases cortisol very quickly in humans. So I think that's why I'm a total tree hugger. So the microbiomes in soil, I don't know if anyone knows a little about that, but they are proven to be very deeply rooted in gut health. Healthy soil is as huge of an environmental catastrophe right now as, say, the ozone layer or anything else. But we need to rebuild our soil, and rebuilding your soil is something that you can do with your community, and it's something that has to be very intentional, and we need to pay closer attention to it. The bacterium that's found in soil stimulates serotonin production. It makes you feel relaxed, and it makes you feel happy. Contact with animals and fish and all of the natural elements, and connecting with the community around environmental issues really does help us feel closer. It's a way that you can connect with each other and work on these important issues that we all need to get involved in. There is so much more that I could talk about. Like, I could actually talk about this for hours, but I know that we're running short on time. And so I just wanted to thank you guys so much for giving me my first ability to present to a group. It's a massive group, and I'm really grateful. I didn't pass out up here, so thank you guys so much.